All right, welcome back to Fight Talk, where we talk combat sports. My name is Austin Ullman, and we've got the UFC 311 post show here. What an event it was! It was a good way to start the year. It was a fun event. There was, the first while I would say was boring, but when we got into the main card, we saw some very exciting fights, and I did not expect the most exciting fight to be Merab Umar, and it was. It was. So I can't wait to get into that fight. Yuri Jamal Hill, fantastic. But at the top, Islam Makhachev is still the champ at 155. Not much doubt about it coming into this fight. Obviously, my entire preview show was about him fighting Arman Tsarukyan. That fight did not happen. Arman hurt his back. And so Islam fought against Renato Moicano. Moicano took this fight, obviously was fighting Dariush. Dariush ended up not fighting on this card, but Moicano took the shot because obviously, Moicano, he was on an impressive win streak. He was looking good, but he wasn't necessarily anywhere near a title shot. He had just beat Benoit Saint Denis. And all of a sudden this opportunity comes, and Moicano obviously is going to grab it. He does grab it, but there's levels to this game. And there was really no doubt that Islam Makhachev was going to win this fight at any point. It was levels. It was levels. Islam did enough, apparently, that after, which I'm not sure how good Dana thinks Renato Moicano is, but he was willing to go as far as to say that Islam is number one on his pound-for-pound rankings now, ahead of John Jones. He slid Jones to number 2. Islam beating Charles and Poirier didn't do that, but beating Renato Moicano on short notice is what apparently did that for Dana. Would love to hear him explain that, but regardless, I'm not going to get so much into the pound-for-pound talk or any of that, but this is a dominant champion, and to take the fight like this is not easy. Everyone thinks about Moicano taking this, who was obviously training for the fight, but then you've got Islam, and Islam was preparing for Tsarukyan, who's obviously a different fighter. He's going to bring different things. Handled it easily, looked afterwards like he wasn't in a fight at all. No scratches, no cuts. This guy was clean as could be, and the first couple minutes, spent it on the feet, felt things out, striking looked good, took it to the ground, Dar stroke, ball game, keeps the belt. So, listen, I think probably there's not much to pick apart about this fight. I think probably the most interesting thing when it comes to this fight is the pound-for-pound discussion. Is the question of Islam and John Jones, and then people throw Ilya's name in there. And I believe Alex is right there with the rest of them, although usually people aren't as quick to throw him in that conversation. But I mentioned it before, and I think we're really heading into a dominant era of champs in the UFC. We've been in an era where things have been moving around. Just take middleweight, for example. Sean Strickland becoming a champion, and then Dricus du Plessis, and Strickland could get it back here, and I think Hamzat will get it soon, and that's kind of been the picture for a lot of divisions in the UFC, with not much stability at the top. And I really think if you look top to bottom, we're entering an era where, who's going to beat Ilya? Who's going to beat Islam? Who's going to beat, Jones or Aspinall at the top? Who's going to beat Pereira? Who's going to beat Merab? Who's going to beat Pantoja at flyweight? You could go all the way up and down and pretty much say that for every guy who's holding a belt at this point. And Islam and Ilya and Alex and Jones are obviously at the top of that. But I think that's what this next year and I think couple years is going to look like in the UFC. If I had to guess, is just a lot of these same guys defending the belt. And certainly that will lead to some some champ fights, guys moving up, and because if that doesn't happen soon, I mean, we talk about it after last night. Ilya called out Islam, and there's always going to be a contender. There's always going to be the next Diego Lopez and different guys. There's always going to be those guys. There's always going to be the Arman Tsarukyan. But if there's ever a time to make a few of these fights, it's now. I mean, heck, Tsarukyan, it's fine, but like Ilya and Islam, that's a fantastic fight. And so Islam, who's obviously been talking about going up to 170, but probably wouldn't happen right now with Malal. So that's kind of on hold, and Dana said Arman's not necessarily next up at this point, and so you put Charles back in the picture at 55. But going back to the pound for pound, when I look at that, I'm looking at something where, I think it probably is Islam. I think it is. This guy's been dominant in a really, really good division. And he's beaten a group of guys who have dominated, who have really been the face of the sport for a little bit. When you look at guys like the Oliveras of the world and the Poiriers of the world, and these guys, I mean, he has dominated these guys. He's taken care of them easily, with really, besides being knocked out once at the very beginning, he just hasn't faltered. He already beat Arman Tsarukyan, right? Like, and if there's any questions about guys moving up and down, he did it twice. He accepted the fight against Volk twice. He's a true champion. Everyone talks about Alex Pereira and the short fight notices that he's taken. How about Islam? He accepted Volk on short notice. He accepted this fight on short notice. A lot of champions wouldn't do that. There's a lot of champs that just don't do that. And so, it goes both sides there. And so, respect to Islam for that. And this guy's a true champ. He is everything you could want. He's drastically improved his striking. I mean, just does a fantastic job. And, truly could, in my opinion, go pound for pound in this division if this was a striking-only league. I mean, his striking has improved that much, and he can hang with a lot of these guys. So Islam Makhachev is still your champ. Fantastic, dominant victory for Moicano. Will he be back? I'm not sure. I mean, he's no one was clamoring for a Moicano title shot, and I don't think anyone will again. I think he's a good fighter. But we look back, I mean, what if Jalen Turner follows up that knockdown, right? Like, he might have lost to Jalen Turner. Still major questions about who is Benoit Saint Denis, and hasn't had that big-time staple win where he really deserved this shot. And so, for Moicano, he's going to have to get back in the gym and keep working, and still a fantastic interview and post-fight guy, and, someone who a lot of fighters in the UFC can learn from when it comes to in-cage skills and just accepting loss. I thought he did a nice job of that. But let's get into a more exciting fight. Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov. I picked Umar in this fight, and we'll go back to the last one. I picked Islam as well. Or I picked Arman to beat Islam, but when this fight was made, I picked Islam without a doubt. Merab Umar. I mean, it's not very often that you say. What I figured in this fight was Umar is going to look more technical. He's going to look better in the wrestling game. And he's just going to do really well at what he does well. And looking back at this fight, I'm not necessarily sure that I was wrong. But he didn't win. And I'm not sure that Merab outstruck him or even out-wrestled him. But the pace that we saw from Merab was truly, truly incredible. I mean, the announcers, I think, did it perfect justice. I think Anik and those guys did an amazing job explaining what we were seeing. And we knew this already, but it was, we underestimated how good this guy is. There was a lot of questions, and a lot of people expected, and the betting odds expected, Umar to win this fight. And Umar didn't look bad. That's the thing. I think we got the Umar, and he's going to say he broke his hand, and we can accept that, and, I think we'll see this fight again. So if that was a real thing that truly affected him, we'll understand when they fight again. But Umar's a guy who beat Corey Sandhagen and no one else. And you look at Merab's victories. Jose Aldo, Petr Yan, right? The fight with all the takedowns. Henry Cejudo, the fight where he picked him up and took him across the cage. And then Sean O'Malley. And now Umar Nurmagomedov. And he beat all those guys. I mean, 30 takedown attempts, 7 takedowns for Merab. But was outstruck to the head. He outstruck Umar to the body. And he outstruck Umar to the legs. But the pace that this guy fought with, and listen, I mean, this guy, his style isn't exciting. He's extremely fun. He's got an awesome personality. He's a great guy. He does hilarious videos on Twitter, the skits that he does. But frankly, if he was just fighting as a typical wrestler with his skill set, it would be pretty disappointing to have him as a champion. And it's not. Because the pace and the showboating and all these takedown attempts and just the smile on his face through it all is quite the show. It really is. And this guy's going to turn into a real star, I believe, because these fights are so exciting. And to see Umar outstrike him and for him to get down 2 rounds to nothing probably, most people agree on that. One judge had it 4-1, but the other 2 had him losing the first 2 rounds, and that's how everyone saw it. And then he didn't necessarily outfight him. He just outpaced him. And he just kept moving forward. He wasn't putting on a striking show or even a wrestling show. And then he'll get a takedown, and then he just gets up. He doesn't actually land on you. He just gets up, waits for you to get up, and then 5 seconds later he shoots another takedown. It's a crazy style, and it's really something we haven't seen before. The gas tank that this guy has is... we haven't seen it. We have not seen it in this sport. And I think he'll be a real star for that. I really do. Because those 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I couldn't tell. I was on the edge of my seat, but I was laughing at times. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible. And to showboat through that, and trust me, I'm pretty, anti-showboating in the UFC. I'll watch Manel Cop sometimes and be like, man, it's kind of frustrating when you're fighting a guy you're better than who's, ranked 10th, and you're showboating on him, right? Peyton Talbot wasn't showboating last night, right? Manel Cop, when he fights Mikhaev, isn't showboating. There's certain guys that can showboat against certain guys, but when they're facing an actual challenge and they know it, they're done. They're not showboating anymore because they know it takes away from their performance. Merab? How about his 2 title fights? Sean O'Malley, plenty of showboating. Umar Nurmagomedov, plenty of showboating. That's insane. The hardest fights of his life against world-class, extremely popular, against Sean O'Malley and an undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov. And he spends so much time showboating. And it was awesome. And I didn't feel like it took away from his performance. So many guys showboat and it takes away from their performance. And for him, it just adds to it. It adds to his character and personality. It adds to, there's certain pictures that you can't take out of someone's mind. When you see Merab take an Olympic wrestler like Henry Cejudo and drag him across, you can't get that out of your mind, right? When you see Sean O'Malley throw a leg kick and he goes you cannot get that out of your mind. When a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov is on his back and Merab is laughing, talking to the announcers, talking to the fans, talking to Dana, whoever, you can't get that out of your mind. Because you're saying, I've seen that before. That's a Nurmagomedov. And anytime a Nurmagomedov gets on someone's back, they're going to take them down, and they are going to lay on top of them for the rest of that round, and it's going to be so dominant. And in this case, you have someone who wasn't the slightest bit worried about that. And he was having fun. And he was just talking and laughing. And to me, it adds so much to his personality. Some guys, it just takes away from the skilled fighter that they are when they spend time thinking about showboating. And for him, I think it adds so much. And frankly, some guys don't have the energy to do it, right? Guys will sometimes it's a tired thing. Guys will get to the third or fifth round, right? And they're tired, and they'll start to do it because it takes less effort to showboat than it does to throw a punch. And they think, well, I can't effectively outstrike this guy right now. At least I can sketch it in the mind of people that I'm winning this fight. And for Merab, it's not that way. It's almost like, I have so much energy that I'm not even going to use in this fight. I might as well just spend more energy. Because I could go for 15 rounds. I got to start doing things other than fighting to take energy away from me. Because this is way too easy. I can keep this pace up. And that's fun. That is fun. And honestly, it's probably better if this guy's matched up with a wrestler. It is. Because the O'Malley fight wasn't this exciting for Merab. It's probably better if he's matched up with a wrestler. But I will say this. The more he does this, and the wins like O'Malley in this, the more people understand it. And the more people are saying, I can't wait to see that. Because I know he's going to do some crazy stuff. And it might not be my favorite style. But it's kind of crazy. And it's kind of different. It's something different than I've ever seen before, right? That interests people. We've got the Ilia Toporias and the Alex Pereiras of the world. This is something different. And hopefully it shows to up-and-coming wrestlers, you can be a fan favorite. Merab got booed, right? People were cheering for Umar in this fight. And, I mean, the fans were the loudest. They were the entire night for this fight, for the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. They loved it. They loved it. And that's how it should be. It got fight of the night, as it should. It was incredible. It was incredible. And I can't wait to see what's next because, I mean, it's just the confidence. It's just something you can't get out of your mind. When you see somebody do something like that, it just adds so much. It just adds so much, right? It's like Jamal Hill. It's like Jamal Hill trying to catch the arrow, trying to do all those things. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's cringe, and you can't get it out of your mind. So let's talk about Jamal Hill. He got knocked out again. Yuri with a knockout victory. Jamal looked okay. I mean, obviously he spent more time in there than he did against Pereira, which is a start. And I thought he looked all right. Probably my biggest critique is that I still just feel that he lacks confidence in who he is and his style, and he's trying to be something that he's not. But when you talk about having a thing and having an identity, very few people have more confidence in their identity and who they are than Yuri Prochazka. I mean, I said it. He's won 15 fights in a row now against people not named Alex Pereira. But the two biggest fights are still Alex Pereira. Because if he didn't have those fights, this wouldn't be as big as it is right now. Those Alex Pereira fights added so much to his career, added so much to who he is, people watching him for the first time. And here he is now continuing to build on that legacy. And once again, third round, fight gets chaotic, and Yuri Prochazka does his thing. So another fantastic performance for Yuri Prochazka. This guy, like I said, I think Jamal lacks an identity and an understanding and confidence in who he is. Yuri's the exact opposite. It's 0 to 10 with these guys. Truly is. Jailton Almeida won TKO finished Spivak pretty quickly. De Ridder subbed Kevin Holland. Still holes there, still young, still learning, but a nice performance over Kevin Holland. And then Peyton Talbot, he lost. You got Raoni Barcelos getting the unanimous decision win, exposing Peyton Talbot's ground game. Just, you knew there was a chance of it, always, but usually with these guys, they get out of there so quickly that you don't even think about it. And in this case, he was not able to get out of there quickly. His striking looked all right, but he just didn't have much opportunity to strike, and he just got absolutely out-wrestled. He did. So, a tough loss for Peyton Talbot. Now, quick going down the list again. Who do I want to see next for each guy? Starting with Islam Makhachev, I think it's Arman Tsarukyan. And I know the UFC disagrees, and I understand that. I understand the frustration. I mean, Arman was suspended for a bit because of the altercation with the fan. I understand all those things. But I think that's the fight. We've seen Charles, and it feels like Charles has a ceiling, and it feels like these other guys have a ceiling. Gaethje and Hooker was just signed, which is so sick. That's going to be such a good fight. You could go winner of that. It's just not something I need to see. I still have a major question about Dan Hooker. I'm not as high as other people are on him right now. Gaethje, I mean, we saw what happened to Gaethje last April. And then there's Arman. And we don't know what the ceiling is there. It feels like everyone else has a ceiling. And this guy we don't know what that is. We don't know what that is. I explained it. I explained that I thought he was going to beat Islam. And I think we deserve that fight again. And I think Arman needs to be vocal about it. I think he needs to call him out. But that's something I absolutely need to see. Going to bantamweight. Who's next for Merab? This is a really interesting question. Because, I mean, if you're purely going off of competitive aspects, who was the more competitive fight? It was absolutely Umar, without a doubt. And then you really don't have other names in this division that are going to be clamoring for this shot. So I think it's between O'Malley and Nurmagomedov. I think you do Nurmagomedov. I think you give O'Malley more time off. I think he needs to show us that he's done something. There's so many good wrestlers in this division. Henry Cejudo, Figgy, right? There's Jan. There's plenty of guys that can wrestle in this division and could challenge Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley needs to prove himself again. I'm not comparing him to Peyton Talbot, but there's similarities, big-time similarities in how those two fights went. Now, O'Malley, respect to him, he made it to the top before that happened. Talbot did not. But some serious questions about that, and I just don't think it would be doing it justice to put him back in that. I don't think it'd be good for him and his best interest to be putting him back in that position. I think you run it back. Competitive fight. Fans loved it. It was amazing. I think you run that back. How about light heavyweight? We got Pereira and Ankalaev was signed, and so I think this one to me is a no-brainer. I think it's Khalil Roundtree Jr. I think Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Roundtree Jr. fight. These are two guys who Jamal Hill gave Pereira nothing to work with. Roundtree challenged Pereira, and Prochazka challenged Pereira a bit the first time, not as much the second time. But hey, if Yuri and Alex fight again, people are going to watch it. People are going to watch it. Regardless of what people think and how confident they are that Pereira would win a third time, people would watch it. And so if Prochazka can beat Roundtree, give it to him again, honestly. But yeah, they signed that Ankh fight, so the division, the light heavyweight division is moving right now, and that's good to see. So yeah, those are the fights I want to see next for those guys. Almeida, I said it. I think Volkov would be the guy to call out for him. I think that'd be a smart call out. And then De Ridder needs to. I think he needs to take things slowly and keep beating and fighting guys like Kevin Holland towards the bottom of that division. But that is it. That's the recap of UFC 311. One last comment. Crowd was amazing. Intuit Dome was amazing. That is the announcers were in awe the whole time, but that is the future right there, and that makes me pretty happy. The scoreboard, and the smoke coming out of the things from the ceiling, so cool. That was so cool. I mean, just awesome. And it's like, it makes you think, you know, I think NFL's moved a little quicker than NBA to this point where it's like we have quite a few really, really nice NFL stadiums, whereas NBA and MLB just move slower. And for the NBA, we just don't have that yet. A lot of arenas like that. But that's the future. And so I'm thinking last night I'm watching, I'm like, man, if you're a person who's invested in Vegas wanting to continue getting big fights, step your game up and think about building something there or doing something, because what we watched last night is the future, and pretty soon the future will be everywhere. And these arenas are amazing. I mean, I was thinking like the Texas Longhorns playing a really good one, Moody Center, with a scoreboard kind of like that. I think they should have a fight there. And I think they have had a fight night there. But like, keep tapping into those things, whether they're overseas or here. Because that was cool, and that added so much to the experience. The promo videos on there, and as the fighters were walking out, that was fantastic. So keep going back there. I love it. Everyone else, step your game up. Hopefully we can get more NBA teams getting arenas like that, because it really helps us out. But that's it. That's your UFC 311 recap. Week off, and then Adesanya, and then 312 the week after that. So I'll sign off for now. Thanks for tuning in. This is Fight Talk.